So a question I often get asked is, was it hard to leave your home country and leave all your friends and family behind? Or do you ever get lonely being in a different country? And that's a really interesting question. Seriously. Do you mind? I'm trying to shoot a YouTube video over here. So when I first got to Korea, I made friends with an American guy, or he's German American, and he ended up being one of my best friends there. And he said to me something that really stuck with me. He said, you know, the worst part about being an expat in a different country and having other expat friends is that one day they all leave. And he was totally right. So while I'd never planned to leave Korea, I actually ended up leaving because of the pandemic. And I've got a whole bunch of friends over there that I haven't seen for 2 years now, and I really, really miss them. And I have experienced things like this with, I've made friends in Korea and they ended up leaving, or I made friends here in Thailand and they've left, or made friends, you know, in other countries that I'm just not able to see anymore. So I've been really fortunate to make amazing friends all over the world, but the downside is it's kind of like a one-sided relationship because we don't get to hang out, and the only times I can see them is if I go back to visit that country again. So it takes a real effort to maintain those friendships. So for me, the hardest decision was actually just to leave Australia. So living overseas was something I'd always wanted to do. It was something I felt I had to do in my life at some point. Even if it was just for 6 months or whatever, I was hell-bent on doing that at some point. The biggest challenge was I had a girlfriend, we'd been together for a couple of years, and she wasn't gonna come with me, and basically I had to make the decision of whether I stayed with her or whether I went and lived overseas. And I ultimately decided to move overseas, and my thinking was, you know, if I didn't do it, if I didn't do something I dreamed about for so long, I'd probably end up, you know, subconsciously resenting her for it or blaming her for it or something, and that's a road I didn't want to go down. The ultimate turning point for me was I remember having a conversation with one of my family friends, you know, one of my parents' friends, and I said to them, oh, I'd really like to go live overseas. Maybe at the end of this year I'm thinking about doing it. And he said to me, something I'll never forget. He said to me, oh, that's something I almost did once. I hope you get the chance to do it. And I remember it just hit me so hard. I thought, like, I don't ever want to almost anything, you know? I was so moved by what he said, and I never wanted to have that experience. So I literally typed my resignation letter that night. But it's amazing how many people tried to talk me out of it. You know, not my family are all super supportive. They're all into travel, and, you know, my parents are just like, yeah, go chase your dreams, go have fun. So if you watch regularly, you'll know Sam, one of my best friends from Australia, just spent 2 weeks here, and we had the best time, and I had a great time showing him what my life's like here, you know, much like you guys. He watches my videos back from Australia, and it's a really funny thing because if you watch the videos all the time, I mean, you guys may experience this yourself, you watch the videos all the time, you get to know the other people in the videos, and you feel like you know them in a way. I've experienced this when I've met other YouTubers for the first time. You sit down with them and you instantly feel like you know each other. So it was really fun for me to introduce Sam to all of my friends here, you know, Dan, Rob, Kay, all my friends down in Pattaya, and we had such a great time doing it, and I know the experience for him was a lot of fun as well. As an example, Sam and I have been friends forever, and we still talk, even though we're in different countries. We would still talk just as much, actually possibly even more, than when I'm in the same country as him. You know, we would just text like the same as you text a regular friend. So, you know, staying in touch that way was actually quite easy, and we would, like, occasionally we'd just like hang out and do a video call, have a beer together. I guess the only thing that was different was that we couldn't actually physically hang out, but we still, you know, our friendship was just as good as ever. I think I'm quite fortunate that I'm able to make friends quite easily. So when I first moved to Korea, actually, the majority of my friends I met pretty much within the first week of me living in Korea, and they're my friends, or they're still my friends to this day. I had a very similar experience here. I met Dan, God, probably my first week out of quarantine here when I first arrived here in Thailand, and my close friends down in Pattaya. I think I met them on my first night in Pattaya, and we're still friends, and that's who I go catch up with every time I'm down there. And I've just sort of met other people along the way and managed to collect myself a great group of friends here in Thailand. So to answer the question of do I ever feel lonely? I mean, the short answer is no, I don't feel lonely. I've got great friends here. I've got great friends everywhere I travel to. I miss my family. You know, I try and go back home a couple of times a year, 2 to 3 times a year. It's been hard, obviously, lately with everything that's going on in the world, but I've got a niece and nephew back home that I really miss. You know, they're at that age where they're growing so fast, and I think that it seems like every time I see another photo of them, they look bigger and older, and I feel like I'm missing out on that sometimes. But I think we are actually all going to be getting together quite soon, so I'm really excited about that. I think the funny thing is for me, I actually think I talk to my parents more when I live overseas than when I live in Australia. You know, when I was back home, I was so caught up in everything that I was doing there, and, you know, being overseas, I make more of an effort to keep in touch with my family. The biggest thing for me now is I've been living here for 1 year and I'm like completely settled here and I've made great friends, and if I did leave Thailand someday, then I've got all these friends that I won't get to see anymore, and you know, the thought of that bums me out. It's much like the time when I left Korea. Oh God, actually, you know what, Korea was worse because I never actually planned on leaving Korea. I flew back to Australia at the beginning of the pandemic thinking I was just going to wait it out for a few weeks and I'd be going back to Korea, and I never actually made it back there. So from this month, I'm actually about to try something which is really exciting to me. So I'll be based here in Thailand, I'll be living here, living in this apartment, and I'll spend 2 weeks out of the month here, and the other 2 weeks I'll spend visiting a different country and traveling. So there's a lot of countries that I would like to visit. You know, Korea is obviously very high on my list. I want to go to Vietnam. I'm going to the Philippines in just a few days, which I'm really excited about. But basically, if this works for me, if this works for the channel, and this looks like something I can do for the future, I'm really excited to be spending sort of, half my time here and half my time in another country each month. That does mean I'll get to see my friends in other countries, I'll get to make new friends, I'll be traveling around, doing what I love. It's a really exciting thing, and I'm hoping it all works out for the best. Alright guys, that's it for me today. I will see you tomorrow. But you can experience so many different things here. You can, be totally chilled out and go to beautiful temples and parks, or you can go to the nightlife spots and go absolutely crazy.